I realized I filmed this whole video and I didn't make an intro, so I'm a freak named Allie. Should probably turn that off. You're blinded by romance, you're blinded by silence. Your condition is critically gray. Anyway. Alright, so today's video I was kind of hoping not to have to come to do the way it's gonna be today because that meant that Trump got the nomination. So, with Donald Trump in the nomination, we're gonna do this video. Today's video's inspirational song is Breaking Out by Oscar Drilla and the Bits, and all of about 5 of you are gonna be confused as to who that even is, but for those 5 of you, yes, I do know. That is from a movie, but I'm kind of using the whole movie for this video as inspiration, but I needed a punk song, so that's my song. So, for the rest of you, Oscar Drilla and the Bits is the fictitious garage band in the movie Shock Treatment. Shock Treatment is the sequel to Rocky Horror Picture Show, and if you're anything like me, I grew up, basically my entire life was watching Rocky Horror Picture Show and Shock Treatment at regular intervals between my Disney movies, because that's the kind of alt life I lived, I guess. And growing up, I always understood Shock Treatment to be a very serious critique on the silent majority politics that were kind of enveloping the Western world at the time. So Shock Treatment was released in 1981. As the more political people will know, that's right about the rise of Reagan, that's Margaret Thatcher's dominance, and that's when the silent majority was really coined. So for me, watching this as a little kid who was too involved with politics growing up, I always understood it to be a tongue-in-cheek critique on that perfect, happy home and the way people were supposed to be, and I also feel like there's a couple scenes that really relate to Donald Trump, so that's where we're gonna move to in this video. So, with Shock Treatment, there's a couple main topics I want to cover in this. I think Shock Treatment, like I said, is a critique on that conservative style politic of what society should be. Either it's moral majority, silent majority, however you want to talk about it that way. Farley as Trump, I kind of feel like that's an obvious, especially with that out scene at the end. It's terrifyingly close to his rallies. I feel like at the end you're supposed to see progressivism or like alt-style people winning in that they don't fall for the main trick at the end. There's a lot of interesting tongue-in-cheek product placement around. Like, it's not product placement in the movie the same way you see it, you just are hinted at the way product placement is in modern life. And then I really like the talk of a captive audience, in that when you watch the movie, the audience is part of the cast and is in the studio the whole time. Shock Treatment is also completely on YouTube, so pause here when I'm making a funny face and go watch that. I feel like it's important for you to know what I'm talking about, and especially when I'm talking about how Shock Treatment relates to Trump. I think the visuals will really sink in better if you've seen it. There's a couple spots you can either find it in bits and pieces. I think there's like 3 versions of it uploaded in its entirety. Just search it, find it, it'll be easy. So, I've got my Deep Plum lipstick, but no therapeutics. So let's go on and get to it, and hopefully don't make Richard O'Brien too mad. So the opening theme, I think, is a good place to start. We'll just move forward on that. In the opening theme, there's an obvious play on gender roles, on consumerism in America, on the idea of what's a good person, and a little bit of... So, opening scene, I'm just going to kind of address stuff as it comes up in the movie. So with the opening scene, we're introduced to a nationalistic concept to the idea of tolerance, but not really tolerance, just sort of like bland dislike, inactive dislike, really. Very strict gender roles, consumerism, and capitalism, all within the letters of Denton. It's kind of cool, actually, in my opinion. And then you've got this interactive, captive audience, which I think is crucial to a nationalist society, a capitalistic society, and a very consumerist society as well. What I also really like about this opening scene is that Richard O'Brien, who isn't actually an American, he picked up very well on the attitude that Southerners try and get about them being more true Americans because they're more moral or more virtuous, in that they're frequently more consumerist or nationalistic. I have always liked that these movies were set in Texas because it's very at odds with part of what Texas is, but also very true to what Texas is at the same time, because Texas is the kind of place where people try to say that they're very outstanding, upstanding. The next scene is the first one that we really get a taste of what I feel touches on. Wait for that. The next scene, we get what I think is the first, like, introduction to the Trump character. It just is the first introduction to the Trump character. It's the Farley Flavors fabulous fast food ad. And you'll watch it and you'll see exactly what it's trying to say with its imagery. But it's definitely talking about how we sell not necessarily a healthy lifestyle with our very consumerist-based culture. So, I wanted to go a little bit more in depth about why I think the Farley Flavors fabulous fast food ad really pertains to Trump. When you watch it, you'll see these 5 F's splayed out into a star shape that's very reminiscent of a certain party from Germany in the 40s, and I think that that was very much on purpose. That's kind of linking that capitalism, take all, everyone else be damned style capitalism, and comparing it to a nationalistic idea where instead of your country being what you forsake everything for, it's capitalism. And you get this megalomaniac style impression from who Farley is, in that he's building himself up in this persona. He's larger than life, and you see that built up until you actually meet him later in the movie. And I think that that really, really relates to Trump. Not that Trump is going to be stupid enough to make any sort of symbol for himself, I hope, that is similar to certain symbols we don't like to use in our culture. The next scene that I think has good topics for this video to cover is the happy home scene shortly after Janet's parents win on that TV show, and I wanted to point out that I find it entertaining that they're more excited to have won something instead of being concerned that maybe we should be looking into the mental health of our family members. But anyway, there's an interesting little slight on appropriation in that when Janet's mom talks about the dress she made for Janet being out of something she saw, the Far East meets Midwest. I was pretty entertained by that. I've kind of always been. And you've got that whole song with Janet's dad, basically outlining the stereotypical macho male in the patriarchy. He's supposed to do all these things, and he's not supposed to do this or that, and he's pretty decidedly racist in several comments in that scene. But I personally think that that scene is kind of like Fox News' wet dream come to life. That's everything they think people should be or how they should act is that scene. That's what Fox News is selling. So when they buy into Trump, I feel like you gotta think about how that scene is and what that means for a multicultural nation like America. Another hilarious coincidence, I think, that connects shock treatment to Donald Trump and his campaign are the hats. I think that's just a hilarious happenstance, and it tickles me greatly that both of them have obnoxious hats. Finally, the last scene that I think is most critical to this comparison is the most obvious. The terrifying videos of Trump rallies where people are shouting and screaming and people are getting punched and forcefully removed. That is part of the end scene for this movie. The main characters decide they don't want to be a part of Farley Flavors' crazy little world, and they get forcefully removed from everyone else. It really struck me when I first saw a clip of Trump shouting at people, out, 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 because all I could see was Farley Flavors, out, out, out. It's kind of weird how life imitates art, really. I imagine that Richard O'Brien had, like, the weirdest heebie-jeebies when he saw that happening on the news of Donald Trump screaming and whole crowds going crazy, out, out, out. Like, he had to have just been like, I need to go lay down and, like, am I in the Twilight Zone, I imagine. Ugh. I would have felt fucking weird. Finally, I wanted to point out that not only do your main characters that have kind of been outsiders of the rest of the main cast, but that Oscar, Joel, and the Bits also leave with the main characters. They leave in the "we'll do it anyway" scene. I know that's supposed to be more of a, like, casting off of the silent majority's concepts of who you're supposed to be with or who you're supposed to be or do or whatever. But I've always particularly liked that, you know, the punk band picks up and leaves too, because they're not going to be part of this fake little world Farley has created for his consumers. It just hits me personally because I have kind of an opinion on, or like a theory on, culture and the relations of general mass culture and the subcultures that aren't necessarily, like, accepted. I feel like it fits nicely into my little theory, and in a future video I'll probably end up covering that, but I just always liked that. And I guess I'll close out the video, which is probably forever and a day long now, with my favorite line in the movie, which is, "The sun never sets on those who ride into it." I think growing up watching that movie made me decide that that was going to be my life motto. So, hell or high water again, that's kind of how I try and live my life, is keep moving forward. Go Bernie, obviously, right? So I just wanted to do, like, a final comment for the whole, like, 5 of you that have actually seen Shock Treatment and won't have to go YouTube it before you watch this video or after you've watched this video. Yes, I did leave out the title track, and I don't think any of the stuff that I left out was necessarily as relevant, but maybe you do, and you should comment below about why you think I should have included whatever song as it relates to Donald Trump and the terrifying possibility of him being president. I would love to hear from you. So, I'm a freak named Allie. Stalk me pretty easy. I'm everywhere on that. Is it just me, or did Janet always look like a Matt Groening character in, like, half the scene she was in? She just kind of, like, looked awkwardly drawn, like a Simpsons character that was supposed to look a little too real. Figure out where that little blurb thing is.